I record video and take pictures of almost everything that I do, especially if I think it's interesting. But there's a lot of it that never even makes it onto Dig Drive DIY. So in this video, I wanted to take an opportunity to put a fraction of that unused footage together and give you a behind-the-scenes look at what you haven't seen from me over the past year. Most of this was filmed while I was at my day job, and there's a lot of variety here, but I think many of you will still find it pretty cool. So I hope you stick around to check it out.
Dig Drive DIY.
Sometimes around home, people mistakenly think that I'm a farmer. And that's understandable considering I've had multiple careers in agriculture. But truth be told, I'm not a farmer. I'm just what I like to call farm adjacent. I grew up in a house surrounded by farm fields on what used to be our family farm. But my grandfather and his brother got out of farming in 1978, and since then nearly all of the family land has been divided up and sold. But that has never stopped me from being fascinated with all things farming. And luckily, I still have plenty of relatives and close friends that farm, so whenever I have the urge and the time, I can jump in and help out about as much as I want.
But Neil, I can just pop you off at the very end.
Okay. Plus, my day job as an agronomist at G&K gets me involved with farming on nearly a daily basis, too. In addition to closely working with lots of farmer clients to improve their productivity, I occasionally get to help out my boss and high school buddy Greg on his family farm, Cannibular Farms. Sometimes it's because they're a little short-handed, and other times it's because we want to test out a new product that might interest some of our clients at G&K. These product tests are called field trials, and while we don't sell any products, we can't endorse or discredit a product out in the marketplace until we've evaluated it ourselves. So that's why I'm borrowing neighbor Steve's John Deere 3155 and what I'll be working on first today. Well, actually, the first thing I'm going to do is get something to eat. Limited on choices when you're in the tractor. All right, so while I get a bite to eat, I'll try to set the stage. It is early May and planting season is well underway. In our area of Northeast Indiana, our biggest crops are corn, soybeans, and wheat. This is Greg planting corn at his home farm, which surrounds our office where I work every day. This is one of our most frequent test fields because it's obviously convenient and it's really easy to observe and collect data from all season long. He's using a 12-row corn planter being pulled by a John Deere 8320 front wheel assist tractor. The corn is planted with a 30-inch spacing between the rows, and that 30 inches allows for tractors and other equipment to easily be driven between the rows even after the plants start to get tall. If you've ever heard of a row crop tractor, then that's what it means because the tractor can be driven between the rows of the crop. There is lots of technology inside the cab of that tractor and on the planter too. The yellow globe on top of the cab is a GPS receiver, and the GPS signal is used to guide the tractor through the field and control when the planter turns on and off. This GPS guidance enables the tractor to steer all by itself in perfectly straight lines, even over long field distances. Hopefully this field will raise in excess of 200 bushels of corn per acre, but there are many variables that can alter the yield. We do our best to prepare and control what we can for the farmer, and then the rest is just up to Mother Nature. All right, got my belly full. Now it's time to go get something done. I'm going to head to the co-op and pick up a fertilizer spreader. So that brings me back to one of the ways that we try to do our best to prepare for a successful season. We need to know what practices and products will raise better crops. So on this day, I'm setting out to test a newer product to the market, which is called Sulfur Plus. And right now, I'm hooking up a dry fertilizer spreader from the local co-op. These spreaders can hold about 6 to 8 tons of product, and they work by using the PTO of the tractor to drive the spinning spreader fans on the back of the cart, and they also use a ground-driven mechanism that runs the conveyor chain in the bottom of the hopper tank. Normally, the co-op would provide the fertilizer to fill this buggy up, but I'm going to take it back to the office empty so that we can fill it up with some of our test product. So I got to tell you, this John Deere 3155 that we borrowed is an awesome little tractor. It was built around 1990. It's got 4-wheel drive, and the air conditioner still works great. Doesn't it just look like a giant 755 or a 318? This is the classic John Deere styling that I fell in love with as a kid, so I'm always tickled to get to drive it. It never gets old. We have 3 different plot fields in mind to test this product. We are going to experiment on both corn and soybeans to see if there's any noticeable increase to yield where the product was applied versus the rest of the field that won't have the product applied. So this is Sulfur Plus. It's pelletized gypsum or calcium sulfate. This has boron and zinc in it, so it's fortified with a little additional fertility. When it's in these round balls like this, fertilizer, when it's processed, it comes like this. These are prills. So this makes it spread real nice and even and consistent, where sometimes pelletized gypsum can be harder to spread. So this looks like pretty good stuff. Once we arrive at our first field location, we mark out an area of the field to apply our test strips. This first field has already been planted to corn, and I can drive between the planted rows and not bother the young seedlings, because this is a row crop tractor, remember? Once I make a couple of rounds here for our trial plot, and my coworker Rob gets it all flagged out, we'll move on to the next field, which will be soybeans. This spreader has a pattern width of about 50 feet, so I'll be covering about 20 rows of corn with each single pass that I make. Oh, by the way, we call one pass in one direction a swath. If you go down the field and back, it's called a round, like a round trip. So just a couple of rounds will make a really nice test strip in the field where we can extract some yield data and hopefully determine if this sulfur product was helpful to improving yield. So that's what it looks like when you spread fertilizer. It's these little balls right here, prills. We're spreading 175 pounds to the acre, so it's pretty thin. It spreads it pretty thin. 21% calcium, 17% sulfur. All right, let's go to the last field and get done with this.
Sounds good.
All right, that's field number 2 done. We're gonna go to the 3rd field, and Ron's ahead of me. He's gonna get that one laid out so I can pull in, engage the spreader, turn on the PTO, and then just keep making rounds until it runs out. It's not gonna be a whole lot, but these are really short rows over here, so. Part of the challenge with some of these new products is that a farmer might not see a yield response because maybe the field isn't necessarily deficient in that particular nutrient. Think of it this way: if you have a very well balanced diet and eat a large variety of foods, then you'll need to take fewer supplements and vitamins to stay healthy. The same thing is true for farm fields, and that's what makes what we do so important. We figure out what fields need what supplements and which fields don't. There is no benefit or return on investment to over applications. So we are all done with our 3 test plot locations, and now we really won't know anything until after harvest, when we can analyze the yield data from these plots and see if it worked or not. After what can be a long spring season to get all the crops planted, we find ourselves settling down a little bit as we enter into summer, but there's still wheat harvest. Well, it's the 4th of July, but the farmer knows no holiday, right?
Every day that ends in a Y is the same.
I always associate cutting wheat with the 4th of July, and this year was no exception as the timing was right on schedule. This was a really good year for raising wheat. The weather was just right, and the fact that overall there was less wheat planted meant that commodity prices were high. In our area, we raise winter wheat, which gets planted the prior fall after the soybeans are harvested. The wheat gets up and established in late September or early October, and then it will lay dormant over winter during the coldest months of the year, and it will begin growing again then in the early spring. When it comes time to harvest wheat in the summer, typical yields in our area will be anywhere from 70 to 100 bushels per acre. Wheat is a very small grain compared to corn and soybeans, which means it's very dense, and when you put it in the truck, you have to be careful because it takes up less space and it can be very heavy, so you have to make sure you don't overload the truck. Some of you might actually recognize this as my dad's old truck, and you'd be right. Greg's family was borrowing it from the new owner of the truck on that day. So on this field, Greg's family has contracted the straw baling to a different farmer, Walker Farms. These straw baling farmers travel all around the area, making up what are referred to as these large square bales. And these gigantic bales aren't the ones you'll see on a hayride or set up for seating around a bonfire. No, these monsters are more for industrial uses. Some landscaping firms can use them to cover new grass seedings, and some farmers may use them for livestock bedding. Usually in the summertime, the ground conditions are really dry and hard, so it enables the straw baler crew to drive their semis right into the field to load up, and we don't have to worry so much about compaction issues. There is a lot of handling and trucking involved with making these big bales, but these guys make it look smooth and easy. Removing the straw from the field actually takes away a lot of plant nutrition that is tied up in the straw. If left in the field, the straw would break down and return that fertility to the soil, but since so much of it is being removed, we must account for that fact when putting fertilizer back on the field. It'll take some extra fertilizer at a higher cost to make up for that straw removal. Since wheat fields are usually harvested by mid-July, the grower is presented with plenty of time to make improvements to the land. This is a great opportunity to improve any drainage issues, and oftentimes you'll see patterned field tile being installed on wheat ground after it's harvested, at least in our area. If you don't have any large land improvement projects to follow up your wheat, then at the very least you'll have time to address any fertility needs. One common use of wheat stubble ground is a place to apply livestock manure. It's common to spread hog manure and dairy manure during the summer, and some folks will also spread chicken manure. Sometimes it's referred to as litter, but chicken manure is a dry product that goes on by the ton. A pretty typical application rate is 2 tons of litter per acre. What you're watching here is a wheat stubble field getting a healthy dose of very dry and dusty chicken layer manure. Once again, the tractor and the large spreader cart are both guided by GPS. This enables the operator to keep track of what parts of the field have been spread and ensures accuracy of the application rate across the entire field. Just be thankful you can't smell this through your screen, because chicken litter is known to be one of the stinkiest manures out there. Matter of fact, I can about smell it as I'm watching this. But litter is so nutrient dense, and you get a lot of value from manure versus conventional dry fertilizer. This stuff has nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium and calcium and a lot of organic matter and tons of other minor nutrients. So if you can put up with the stench, then everybody wins. But fortunately, there are many other products that need to be spread on fields that aren't quite as unpopular with the neighbors. All right, so one of the things we do as agronomists is we recommend lime so that we maintain the right calcium balance and pH of the soil. And this is lime. And we prescribe this to the fields, and then the guys spread it on there. This here is Travis, and he's got a business where he spreads lime and chicken manure and all things that'll fit inside that Tebby spreader. And right now he's loading her up to go make another round. So we'll spread things like, this is high calcium lime that comes from the local filtration plant. They use it to filter out sewage water, and we prescribe the different rates that he should spread this on the field. So some areas of the field may get no lime, and some areas may get 1 or 2 tons, depending on how much it needs. And we're just trying to shoot for this optimal calcium balance. Should have about 68% calcium of the soil. It's a pretty wild setup. Just put what, 33 tons in there? 33 tons. So the GPS controller inside that tractor works off of satellites, and it uses the map that we created on the computer as a prescription. And as he drives across the field and he enters the area that requires lime, it turns the controller on and off so that the applicator starts going. It's not going yet. There it goes right now. It's starting right now. We're gonna get hit. You can see the difference in the soil types and why this lower area is getting lime and that back there where we were isn't. We recommend lots of lime.
So this stuff weighs about 70 pounds per cubic foot. So you can actually put more in the spreader than it can handle.
That's dense and heavy.
Very heavy.
Versus chicken litter is not.
Very light, yes.
Yep.
It has a scale on it, so this tells me how much is in the machine at all times.
Oh, so
it actually runs off of the scale density.
it still has 12 tons in there?
There's 12.96 ton in there, yeah.
Geez, out. I hit pretty good that time. See ya, Travis! So now we're back at the office field to shell the corn that was planted there this spring. It's been a good summer with great growing conditions, and the yields are better than we could have hoped for. Commodity prices are really good as well, which is a real blessing because fertilizer input costs have been at an all-time high. The corn here in this field is going to go straight into the storage bins that are on site. The grain cart takes the corn away from the combine and hauls it over to a waiting truck near the grain bins. The grain cart empties into the truck, and then the corn is transferred with a large auger from the semi up into the grain bin. The auger is powered by an Alice Chalmers D17 tractor. The grain cart can unload very quickly and then get back to the combine for another fill up. The semi here is just acting as a holding tank for the slower unloading auger, so the cart can just dump and run as quickly as possible. There will be enough corn from this field to fill one grain bin and the big blue silo that you see. With the corn dried and stored on the farm, Greg has an opportunity to play the markets and hope for a better price sometime in the future when he could sell for maybe a little bit more profit. So this is what it looks like inside of this grain bin, and he actually had a problem this year. Farmers are always dealing with problems. This is called a stirrator. It stirs the grain and it goes around in a circle and it helps it to dry. And what happened was this stirrator rod broke off the top. That goes across the top and the stirrator hangs down. What we think happened is the rod broke and the bottom part of the rod dropped, and the flighting or the auger part was still attached, so it screwed it into the floor. Yeah, it's always something interesting like that. Broken stirrator. And then they're still going to fill this bin back up with the rest of the harvest that's still coming this year. Cool stuff, huh? So as harvest starts to wind down, we take advantage of any good remaining weather we might have left in the fall. This year we've got a chance to conduct another product trial on the office farm. We're going to evaluate the efficacy of a microbial treatment that is meant to break down the excessive corn fodder and field trash that's left behind from a high-yielding crop. The product is called Trash Breaker, and the plan is to apply it to almost the entire field, leaving only a strip in the center that is untreated. We'll be able to evaluate the untreated strip against the rest of the field from now until planting to see if the crop residue that is left behind breaks down any slower than the treated areas. If this product lives up to its claim, then the organic matter of the treated areas should break down faster and more completely by springtime. We're hoping that after we examine next year's yield data, we'll have more confidence in our willingness to endorse the use of this product. Finally, the last thing that should be done in the fall before the weather turns cold and frozen is any heavy tillage that you want to get done. Today, I'm trading in the 318 for something just a little bit bigger. So, this should be a fun day. My buddy Clint and I are going to see if we can get this field all worked up. And doing this type of tractor work is one of the most relaxing things I get asked to help with on the farm. I equate this to like mowing my yard because you can do it and not exert a great deal of mental energy. It's pretty low stress. The tractor drives itself, and despite getting a little mundane, the time just melts away while you get to listen to the radio or your favorite podcast. And I really love it. Every once in a while I get a chance to jump in a tractor and work a little ground or do something that isn't that critical like this. And I just have a heck of a time. Plus I'm here with my good friend Clint. He's driving the other tractor, and we just spend the whole day waving at each other across the field. But you also have time to just sit and think, which can be a great thing sometimes. I was sitting here starting to wonder about those field trials we conducted in the spring. We pulled the data from the combine for our Sulfur Plus trials, and the initial results show a positive increase in yield on the treated areas. It isn't a big difference, and we're going to need to analyze and look at it more closely, but I'd say the results are promising. We'll compare our results to other plots from the area, and that'll make a really nice winter project. But then we can comfortably tell farmers what we think when they ask us about it. But for now, I'm just going to try to beat the upcoming rain and get this field all finished up. But I hope you enjoyed a closer look into more things that I get to do outside of what you normally see on this channel. Be sure to let me know what you thought down below in the comments. And as always, thanks so much for clicking on this video. If I'm lucky, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Did it pull hard?
Thanks for letting me drive your tractor, Clint.
Anytime. Thanks for driving.